Absolutely. I'm pretty sure I've been muted this entire time. So let me fix that. More Zach. More Zach. Where the Okay, there you are. You're coming through. Cool. We're both coming through. We're going to see a lot more Zach this patch, I think. He still had like a 90% pick ban rate across pretty much all the regions that have already switched over to 7-Eleven. Um, Man, I'm just so sad. We had a good thing going there, and then it turns out that making sure your stream is ready beforehand is much more important. But we do see the Galio picked up. Galio, Zach, not banned this game, and this time by Seventh Heaven.
Yeah,
But Rampage doesn't seem to be prioritizing it nearly as heavily as just about anybody else does. I wonder, one of the things that happens when you have a champion who's so dominant like Zach is people don't practice him because they expect him to be banned.
yeah. And we see over on Seventh Heaven's side, they're almost daring the Zac pick now. They go ahead and lock in their own jungler and say, hey, you know, this champion's really strong, but we don't think that you've got him down. And one thing that I've noticed about Zac specifically is that he's got a very strong kit with the changes to his stretching strikes, has a lot of CC built into his base kit, but using his ultimate in a professional match is incredibly difficult, given that you're playing against challenger tier players who have the mechanics to take a 0.75 second wait before the ultimate comes online and use that time to dodge or to flash or to figure out what they need to do. Um, and so his ultimate is just not, it hasn't been as impactful as maybe people expect it to be. And
hmm
so perhaps that's one reason why teams are starting to avoid him now.
Yeah, it's very true. He is much more difficult to play, which is probably a good thing for Zach. I know one of the biggest criticisms about his old kit was that, hey, you press E and then you press R and you just press W a lot. It's kind of like it's kind of like a Evelyn's Q, the hate spikes. You don't really think about it after a certain point. You're just kind of like, I'm in a team fight. I'm gonna keep pressing this, and everybody on your team will know it because it will be coming through the microphone for an entire team fight. But we do see Rampage picking up a bot lane. Braum has actually been much more picked a lot more this season than I would have expected because you don't hear about people talking about how strong Braum is. They're just like, oh yeah, and Braum's also a good pick.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate how the bottom lane metagame has shifted up in 7.11. In previous patches in 7.10 and 7.9, we saw a lot of very aggressive support champions like Zyra and Malzahar and Brand. These really powerful mage supports that would just kill you and murder you in the lane. However, with the changes to the face of the mountain line of items, they added a shield to the quest, and it makes it actually a lot easier for some of our melee supports to come back. And we've been seeing that in the case of Braum and in Thresh and other champions. And it's been really exciting to watch that sort of adapt and evolve over the course of the patch.
And I think 712 will be even better for these tanky supports, right? We saw so many changes to support items in 712. You got the big ones are the Lock of the Solari and Redemption, and they added a new item. It's called Zeke's Herald, guys.
Zeke's Convergence, I think, is the
Yeah,
the
you're
new
right.
name.
But they just added
But
a new item that is going to be really, really strong. There's going to be a lot more difference, I think, in the supports you pick. And with a brand being picked up. Now, we were already talking about how in Japan, Lavie, the mid laner for Rascal Jester, has been playing a lot of off meta stuff. I have no idea where this brand is even going. They already have the Zyra, they already have the Orianna. I guess it has to be something that Satri is going to be playing in the top lane, but
yeah,
I'm
that would
confused.
be my prediction as well. This is definitely an interesting pickup from Seventh Heaven. Um, One thing that I like about the team composition, though, is that they have very, very strong uh, counter engage,
Hmm.
right? If Seventh Heaven is able to pick up a long range AD carry or anything with a sieging potential off their
Ash.
last pick, and they get ahead, they should just destroy Rampage if they get an early lead. We'll have to see if that ends up being the case. Rampage happy to lock in Ivern and Kled as their last two picks.
Yeah, and I expect them to be picking up an Ash right here, partly simply because of how strong the Ash Zyra lane normally is, but the way that they're hovering Heimerdinger, I know
Uh
Japan hovers Heimerdinger all the time, but with the brand already locked in, Oriana and Zyra coming up as well, he's not changing.
oh
That's a
baby.
Heimerdinger lock, ladies and gentlemen. I have no idea what this team comp is trying to do. They look like they're conferring with their coach because it's either something super cheesy or like they're like, "Hey, dude, can we get a pause?" Because we saw a lot of that last week, and none of them are trading either. And I'd be very surprised if that was a Savage's Oriana. Yeah, I think something's going on here. I don't think he was able to pick the correct champion. Um,
Man, I was so hyped up. I was like, this is gonna be awesome. We're gonna have like an all mid level two. There's gonna be some weird fast pushing team comp with Heimerdinger or something, but alas.
we saw, I mean, it's not something we haven't seen before. It was in like 2012 or something was I think the last time we saw the Heimerdinger uh being picked at all, simply because you have that simple, fast turret push. You just get all of your stuff in mid lane, you get like a blitzcrank and a twisted face, you can gold card and just pull them into your team, and then it doesn't matter that they're 2 levels over you if you're just gonna wail on them with 4 people. It's kind of like okay. But Whittaker's changed a lot since then. He's gone through 2 reworks at this point. The first one being, really big,
Right.
changing the way his turrets work with the laser and his missiles. They aren't point and click anymore like they used to be. They weren't even point and click. Heimerdinger's missiles were like the weirdest skill for such a long time. Just take 3 missiles, 3 closest targets, shoot missiles at them, call it good, walk away, say peace.
Right. Yeah.
But they
I
I don't know about the brand one. That one kind of strikes me as possibly legit, but that's so much magic damage, and I don't even know who'd be playing it.
I agree. Definitely an interesting draft. I'm curious to see to what degree after this pause is figured out the draft will change. Will they be playing the draft from like halfway down onwards? Will Seventh Heaven have to play all the picks that were selected?
I
Um,
both hope so, and I'm terrified of the possibility.
yeah, I could maybe see Brand in the top lane as a potential lane bully, but it
Hmm.
seems difficult to gain an advantage, especially given that Rampage had previously locked in the Galio. And
Hmm.
granted, the Galio was a flex pick, could have gone either mid or the top lane. Um, but knowing that the enemy team, is already going to have this huge magic damage tank, locking in a second mage for your top lane seems like a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, and you already have so much magic damage coming out with Oriana and Zyra. Simply, Zyra does nuts damage. It's not surprising to see Zyra at the top of the charts simply because of all the poke and the Leontries she usually builds over the course of the game. But you already have tons of damage coming out in that regards. I'd be surprised if they chose to do that. Like you were talking about earlier, they had fantastic disengage. It's so hard to engage into Zyra, Oriana, and Brand because you'll just know as soon as you jump in, you're gonna get blown up, CC chain to death. But still, like without like that Ash initiation, you're relying so heavily on Savage, who is a good Lee Sin. Normally he draws bans on that Lee Sin, but it's bizarre. So I'm just trying to think if we did see that because Brock is gonna play Oriana. That's like his signature champion so far.
Right.
Zyra is almost definitely going to be played by Thinton, and you got Lee Sin for Savage. So like, I guess it's not out of the realm of possibility that you do have Rakenya play the brand if they do choose to re-lock that in. It's kind of like the Ziggs pick. except
Right.
it doesn't do any of the things that you actually pick Ziggs for.
Right. Is a lane bully though. Can definitely put out some damage and maybe force some backs. But as we figure this out, what do we know about Seventh Heaven?
Seventh Heaven has been playing pretty good this last season. So we've already talked a little. Oh, I guess we were muted. So I guess we'll have that talk again. Savage is an absolute beast. He drew 11 of the 15 bans against Burning Coral last week. Meanwhile, Halls, on the other hand, also drew like 9 or 10 of them. But Halls feeds, so we'll talk about that later. But Savage really creates so much pressure, and it's partly because they give so many of the resources that would normally go to their top laner, Satori, and give it to Savage instead. And because of this, we often see Satori and Savage being roughly even in CS in a lot of games. Because Satori almost becomes a new roamer. He plays that Gragas, he plays that Galio, and just goes and ganks your lane while Savage is farming in the top lane. And then later you pair that Rengar, you pair it last time with the Graves, and you'll run two supports. You run the Orianna for Brock because he's really good at it, and then Thin will play a more traditional support, and he'll just run around and he can't die because he's just got so many shields.
That sounds like an awesome strategy and one that I hope to see Seventh Heaven execute. It looked like they were almost on that path
Mm-hmm.
in the last draft phase. We'll have to see if that's going to get completely revised or what's going to happen there. Rampage 2, definitely no slouch this split. Currently sitting tied for the top of the meters, top of the standings, if I
Mm-hmm.
remember correctly. Um, definitely done a great job of improving their strengths and minimizing their weaknesses. I felt over the course of this season. You know, like you mentioned earlier, we saw that uh, previous seasons they were a very 80 carry dominated team. They threw all their resources onto Yuitori Miyasi over and over and over again, and he would come up with a plan and shot call them to victory while flame horizoning his opponent. But they've really shaped up to be a team effort now. You see every now and then you see carry performances out of their jungler Tussle and out of their mid laner Ramune, and it's been really exciting to watch them grow as a team and improve.
Mm-hmm. And it's been interesting to watch a lot of these guys, their solo queue accounts, because it turns out OP.GG has a really cool thing where in their leaderboards you can just, scroll down and find all the different player accounts simply because it lists, what team they're on if they're part of one. But recently, I think it's not really been any surprise. Ramune has gone up. He's now sitting pretty in Diamond 1 in the Korean solo queue ladder. Last time I checked, he'd been in Diamond 2. So he's been hovering around, a lot of different areas. But he's been playing a lot more, um, what was it? A lot more Talia than almost anything else in the past couple of days, which is not surprising. A little bit surprising that he's not bringing it out because he doesn't really play Galio that much in solo queue. It's just not a champion that necessarily makes sense for him to grind his solo queue, and he tends to play a lot of LeBlanc, actually, which is part of why every now and then you'll see that ban thrown at him by the other team. But he's building up a much larger champion pool. It's been really impressive to see, and he's been playing more straight supportive mids as well. We actually saw him play Karma in week one. Wouldn't be surprised to see something like that bring out again, simply because of how strong, Evie and Utapone are starting to really just take control of their lanes.
Right. Yeah. It's going to be a pleasure. It's going to be an exciting thing. Again, for those of you who are just joining us, we're currently in a pause. We're waiting for confirmation. Something appears to have gone wrong for Seventh Heaven during the draft phase. They picked some interesting champions, and we're just waiting to see what's going to happen with that.
Mm-hmm.
So, Josh, talk to me about Seventh Heaven and the strength of their bottom lane. Because
So,
I have not seen this team before, and I'm excited to see them perform and
mm-hmm.
match up against Yutori.
Yeah, so Rakenya is been for the longest time. He's been in a position where he's been considered one of the strongest ADCs in Japan, but he hasn't really been on a team that can necessarily help him so much. And this season, it's starting to look a little bit different because of the rest of the team has leveled up a good deal. But he's a Korean import originally, and has bounced between a bunch of different teams. Played for, I believe, Detonation Focus Me for a while before now going, I think his at the time was Detonation Rabbit 5, if I remember correctly. But he's playing on Seventh Heaven now, and he's usually a fairly passive laner for the most part. He plays a little bit more similarly to Zeros, who's now on Burning Core, previously of DFM, and he just kind of waits in the laning phase to try and build up, a small lead there, and then in the middle of the game, he expects to be able to out team fight you at many times. I don't think he's stylistically in a good spot to match up against Yutori Mayashi and Dara, simply because he doesn't get nearly the same amount of attention on Seventh Heaven as Yutori does by Rampage. The exception to this being last week when he ended up playing Twitch with Oriana and Karma support. He was just running around and really being super aggressive, flashing forward kind of things because he knew the team couldn't kill him. But most of the time, he's a much more passive and just strong ADC. He doesn't take low percentage plays for the most part. He will only really do something if he's confident that it is going to get him a lead. Otherwise, he'll just kind of sit around on the edge, kind of like almost like Reckless style in many ways, which is part of why like Reckless is really good at Kennen. But I think we're
Right.
gonna get back into this. Looks like the champion select is being almost redone with the speed of how it's going right now. I think these are all the same bands. I know the Kaelin was the first band, and then Kennen,
Yeah.
and then I think it's like Sin or LeBlanc and something else. But we'll have to see exactly what's going on. The Gragas, did, did Seventh Heaven? No, Seventh Heaven didn't pick Gragas. They didn't pick a normal champion except for Lee Sin.
Yeah. It does look like we're going to revert to a certain point in the draft phase and then carry on from there.
Yeah, that
Uh,
does look to
so
be
we
the
will get the
case.
Galio flex pick.
So it should be the Lee Sin and the Oriana here, I believe, if we're going by that. Yeah, and that's exactly what would come out. And then they picked up Varus and Braum as their response. So I wonder at what point we are going to go back to what it was before, especially with the brand pick coming out. I can see that being like kind of real, but not the Heimerdinger. So I wonder at what point it is that we are going to reset to. And it looks like he's writing in his notebook, so I wonder, the Zac band does come out this time. Did it come out last time? I'll be honest, I can't
Yes.
remember. Okay,
Yeah. Seventh Heaven banned Zach and then Syndra. Uh,
gotcha. Rampage band Zaya. Yeah, there's that again. So I wonder what we're gonna see. I wonder at what point they do change, because so far they've gone exactly the same way, which is not surprising necessarily, but definitely a bit of an odd thing.
to be sure, yeah. It's interesting also that at least in the last draft, you would typically expect Rampage to prioritize with Oriana picked and Syndra banned. You would go to the third champion in the holy trinity of strong mid laners right now, which is Talia.
Hmm.
However, last time they did not pick up that champion.
Okay,
I
and we
believe
do
they
we do see
opted
some
instead to
different
put
pickup.
Ramune in the mid lane.
We do see the Ezreal picked up instead by Rakenya, which makes a lot more sense than the brand. And then it looks like this is where we choose to diverge. And they do have another chance to pick something else if they do want to at this point. But they're opting
Yeah.
not to. They do pick up the Kled, which is something I don't think we've seen Evie play ever. I don't even know if he plays that
This
in.
might be his first competitive game on Kled. Definitely excited to see that champion. Definitely has some strong synergies with Rampage's other members as well. Ivern able to provide a bunch of shielding to make sure that he stays alive on top of Guardian Angel and the mount
Hmm.
mechanic. Also, being able to charge forward and have a Galio ult on top of you definitely seems like a strong way to lock up an enemy team and start a fight.
Hmm.
And we do see over on Seventh Heaven's side, they are going to opt for Renekton for Satori.
And that makes a lot more sense. Uh, I don't know. It makes a lot more sense than Brandon Heimerdinger, I do have to say. But the Renekton coming out for Satori is an interesting thing. Satori has never been known for his carry style gameplay, and you know, we've criticized him a lot simply because of all the CS he gives up to Savage, meaning he generally can't split push against almost anybody else. And Renekton's a character that you do need to be able to split push on. It's a character you do need to be able to take control of the early laning phase. And against Evi's Kled, which we also haven't seen before, but we just know that Evi in general has been a much stronger player over the course of the LJL than Satori has. So giving Satori that lane boy instead of something like a Gragas, or the Galio was already picked, but those style of champions, like a Jarvan or
Sure.
something, that he's going to be relevant no matter what, is a little bit worrying for me, and especially since uh Jarvan in particular was available, comboing it with the Orianna has been a fantastic combination throughout competitive, pretty much as long as those two champions have been around.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see how this game works out. Team composition wise, I am especially curious on Rampage's side. I don't believe that I've ever seen them play this sort of heavy dive composition
Hmm.
before. And they're gonna have to playing, much more aggressive than maybe we would have seen last season, with these champions that need to dive in and go deep, go ham in order to uh, take kills and take objectives. Ivern, will provide some counter jungling and some shielding to their composition, which I think will help them out in the early to mid game.
Hmm.
But I'm a little bit worried about their late game scaling, given that all of their damage is on Yutora Miyasi at this point.
Yeah, we do see a little bit coming out from Kled, but Romney is going to be mostly wave clearing. There's not a lot of magic damage coming out of this team, except we like to use the term ambient magic damage simply because it's kind of like a little bit of extra damage that just pops in and out of the game from Brahm's concussive blows, the trigger seed, and simply the passive coming out on Utormiyashi's W, with the percentage health burst he has whenever he hits a couple auto attacks and an ability. And this is an interesting thing right now, just looking at the Zyra. Whenever there's a Zyra in the game, you pretty much always expect them to go directly to the bottom lane and just build those seeds up. But that's not something Seventh Heaven is doing right now. And I wonder what the thought process behind that is, because whenever we see a Zyra goes bot lane, other support goes bot lane to try and prevent too many seeds. But this isn't. Neither team's really doing that, so I wonder if that's the evolution of the meta. Zyra goes bot lane, enemy team comes bot lane, enemy team brings whole team to bot lane, kills Zyra. Zyra's team brings whole team to bot lane, counter kills Rampage, and well, there's the fan vote right now. Rampage up 77%, which is almost a low
Heavily.
percentage here at this point in Japan, because normally we're used to seeing, 80% plus on a lot of different teams, simply because of how one-sided the league tends to be right now.
Right. And important thing to note about Ivern in 7.11 is that he did receive significant nerfs to his clear. It used to be that whenever you used his passive ability, great early trade from Evie there. Um, you would take 25% of your health in damage. Now it's
Mm,
33%. So slows down his clear as much. He isn't quite as healthy in the jungle
yeah,
now.
and it's been interesting to watch Ivern get changed because he hasn't received that many changes, but he's fallen from that god tier of jungler to something being like, so if there's Zac as his own tier, then there's like Lee Sin and Elise as a second tier. Ivern almost just falls into that very solid third tier of champions where you can play it, but he does start becoming a niche champion rather than, hey, this is first pick, let's take it, like we saw even as recently as the midseason invitational.
Yeah. And here we see Tussle trying to get some warding down for his team. is considering a gank down to the bottom lane. You can see pings down onto Rokanian and Thinton. I'm curious how this is going to work.
Yeah, it's pretty early, especially against like an Ezreal right now. Utori is going a little bit aggressive. Hopefully, I think he's probably just trying to get the grasping roots to come out of Thinton. But Tussel's spending a lot of time here that he could be doing almost anything else. He doesn't have any of his passive circles building up anywhere. And here he comes, goes in, gets Rokenya, gets Thinton's flash, but nothing more is going to come of that. And I don't know. It seems like a lot of time to have done basically nothing. You'll probably just back off, pick up some Krugs. Um, that's a small advantage going over Rampage's way, but for Ivern, who just takes so much time doing anything, I'm not sure that was the best use of his time.
Yeah, and you can see how immediately Savage went and punished the decision from Tussle, recognizing, hey, I see the enemy jungler on the bottom side of the map. There's absolutely no way that I get punished for, looking into the enemy jungle and taking away some of their camps. So he
Hmm.
goes ahead and scouts that out. Doesn't find anything, but does pick up a scuttle crab for himself.
He does, and that's another thing that's we do see from players like Tussle at this level. If you're going to show yourself, the other half of your jungle pretty much better be completely cleared out because it's going to be taken. Uh-oh, Ramune is finding Savage here, but Tussle's already here for the counter gank, and Brock is coming really low here in this mid lane. Ramune is doing a good job of, if not necessarily forcing him to miss CS, and forcing him to just sit there at the low health lane because he just can't push against this Galio early in the game.
Yeah, and you can see the strength of this mid Galio pickup, why it's so strong and why it's been picked in multiple regions across the world. It just does so much damage early on while continuing to build tanky. His base damages as a champion is exceptionally high, and he's got a very strong toolkit to work with.
Hmm.
And you can see Ramune really milking that for its full potential.
Let's look at top lane again. We were talking a little bit about, how much resources Satri tends to give to Savage, but he's already down a full wave of CS as Evie gets his teleport in. And it's not something that, Satri's not giving those minions to anyone at this point. He's already going to fall behind, and right now, though he is evening it up, it is going, Evie's going to pull ahead once again in just a couple moments when he gets back to lane. And it's definitely a scary position for Satri to be in. Satri had actually backed earlier, picked up that longsword. Evie must have forced him out of the jungle, or out of the top lane, simply with how strong his early laning phase is in so many of these matchups. And now he's going to be able to build up a freeze against Satri. It's going to put him even farther behind on what's supposed to be an early game bully.
Yeah, I am not entirely sold on the Renekton pick. We will have to see if Satori can find a way to combat sort of his current weakness and
Mm.
find a spot where he can be useful. Tussle
Mm.
now being pinged out, walked over ward,
That spectator
seventh
bug
heaven.
that they always
Not gonna.
have on Ivern is so odd to watch. He does find the blue buff. They are going to be able to give that over to Ramune, but are they going to be paying for it? Here comes the blast cone. Tesla's forced to flash out, and he should be fine. Savage already missed the the Sonic Wave. He'll have another chance. Kenny comes over the wall. Here he goes. Savage is level 6, but Dara comes in, uses the Unbreakable, and they are going to be able to just back right out. Pretty clean take for that overall, considering how early Tussle was spotted out for that invade.
Yeah, I agree, and that's definitely one of the strengths of Ivern. Again, powerful part of his kit is that passive ability. You don't actually have to do much in order to make a steal like that happen. You just spend 1 second or 2 seconds channeling, and then hit your
Mm-hmm.
smite button, and it's all gone.
And
Definitely a good pickup, especially given that Brock
Evie's
is
getting
already
caught here.
struggling on
Savage
the lane.
is getting landed the Sonic Strike and the Resonating Strike. But here comes the hero's entrance from Galio a little bit earlier. The Shockwave does take him back. Satri is here in the meantime, but Evie's already remounted. Excuse me,
Ooh,
Satri is in a bad spot, and now they're going to charge on to Brock, who is going to be the first blood of the game. What a fight overall. Oh, you told him I should flash it forward. Picks it up. Dara going to take a turret shot, but man, just all across the map, we already see Rampage just starting to outplay their opponents individually. And that's going to be a big lead for them coming out around 2,000 gold, 8 minutes with the Infernal Drake available right now as well. Rampage is in a great spot to start taking a really strong game.
Yeah, I completely agree. And you know, it was interesting watching the where that all started in the topside jungle. You saw Savage, you know, he had the ward down. He was gonna
Satri's scared.
face check. Uh, Evie had to face check over there, but he was trying for the longest time to hold the second part of Resonating Strike,
Mm-hmm.
so that he could use it, you know, on the champion itself and not on the mount. Unfortunately, not going to be the case. And here you see RPG just hit level 6 first and take advantage. Classic bot lane play.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Still happens, you know, even in pro play that you mistime those power spikes and you get punished for it. Really well played from them to just know how much CC they had available to them at that level 6 and pull the trigger.
And Yutori's not going to be using that gold for building towards the Blade of the Ruined King like we've been seeing him do for quite a while now. He's instead going to be building towards, I imagine, an Infinity Edge. But there's a lot of different things that could be built into. The Essence Reaver is another option. Heck, even we could see a Bloodthirster, but that's a little bit unlikely. But the crit itemization builds coming out from ADCs these days are so strong, and it's an interesting adaptation to see Utori going for the Infinity Edge route this game, as opposed to the safety the Blade of the Ruined King provides, especially against like a Renekton Lee Sin. But we do see the KDA coming out on your screen right here, and it's not surprising that Rampage in their 2-0 has had, it does have a better KDA across the board than Seventh Heaven has. And Dara really poking out there as the big KDA winner for Rampage simply because he hasn't been dying pretty much at all. And so all of his numbers look so much better when you have to deal with, like, he died twice in their set versus Rampage, and he probably only died like once or twice in their
Mm-hmm.
first match against Burning Core. But we do
Yeah.
see a little bit more fighting here. Tussle does grab the Scuttle Crab, and the Infernal Drake's still up. Both top laners have their teleport, but here we see Evie going on to Satri, taking him down to half health with just the T-Man and Ninja Tabi. And that's a scary spot for your Renekton to be in.
Yeah, you know, Kled, interesting champion to play in the top lane. Does have a lot of hidden power on that
Ooh, goes
auto
in once
attack
again. The
passive that
Jousting
he's
goes
got.
in. He gets the first one down, misses the Tiamat proc, but he does force the Dominus out of Renekton.
Yeah, and we talked about this potentially being a problem for Seventh Heaven. This Renekton pick was picked into the Kled. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Satori should have known what he was getting into, and you can see him without any real help or pressure between the junglers. You know, he's still getting uh, stuck in a CS disadvantage. Definitely not what he would have wanted to see coming into this matchup.
And it's worrying because Renekton doesn't really get stronger at this point. He's definitely more or less peaked. It does have to back. It does end up picking that Tiamat up, but he doesn't really get stronger. He'll pick up like a Black Cleaver or something. And we've even seen, some junglers are starting to opt away from the Black Cleaver these days simply because they're playing Renekton. They just have to go full tank, and they'll pick up either a Black Cleaver or a Titanic Hydra, so they still do some damage, but just be that front lane tank. And right now, Satri is looking like he's going to be picking up both of them once again, which could potentially just put his team even farther behind simply because Renekton doesn't scale.
Right. And we saw earlier Rampage making smart movements, doing their best to continue to deny the blue buff from Brock. Tussle able to get the smite once again onto the blue buff, was not able to be interrupted. Um, I really like how both teams have been playing the vision game on the bottom side. We've seen a ton of wards go down in both halves of that jungle down there. Seems like Rampage has had the edge both times thus far that they've sort of clashed, but maybe Seventh Heaven turns it around here. We'll have to
Mm-hmm.
see.
And it's going to be difficult for them to turn it around because not only have they given up a lane or given up a kill in 2 lanes already, but every single one of their lanes is starting to fall behind pretty significantly in the CS department as well, and it hasn't built up into any leads particularly right now. Though Evie is sitting on a completed phase, just simply the components coming out of Satori, but it's gonna be they're going to hit those breakpoints early. Yutaro Miyashi's going to be able to back soon. Probably pick up a Zeal or potentially an entire Zeal item. He's been in lane for a fairly long time. And then they're just going to be able to fight over this Infernal Drake. And it's going to be a fantastic pickup for them. Simply, it won't be as strong this game as it might have been otherwise. You only really have the one person who's like, yes, Infernal Dragon. And that's going to be Varus. Otherwise, Kled doesn't build a whole lot of raw AD. Galio doesn't build a whole lot of raw AP. So it's always going to help. You're going to get that little bit of advantage in the offensive stats. Romney's going forward again on Brock, but this time Evie's here. Not going to be able to find the taunt there at all.
Yeah. Quick early Infernal Dragon for Rampage here. They saw that Thintorin opted to back in order to buy his tier 2 support item as well as that Sightstone.
Mm-hmm.
And because he did it in full set of the team, even though Rampage didn't have wards on Savage, they just felt comfortable brute forcing the Infernal and were able to find a good time to do it.
Mm-hmm. And I really liked those bushes that Tussle put down as they were doing the dragon, simply because it turned any contest into a full-on face check right now. And with this ward right here, they are going to be spotting Savage out, so they don't expect them to be picking up anything. Yutori does opt to finish the Essence Reaver here, so he's a little bit more gankable, but he is level 6. Dara has his ultimate as well. There's, charge coming in, finds its way onto Brock, but that's going to be it. They're going to get the flash, and the teleport response from Satori already canceled.
Definitely worth it for Rampage. Anytime that you can force pressure
Here
off
comes
the
another
map.
ultimate down onto Rakenya, not finding a whole lot. The Glacial Fissure does find its way onto Thinton, but the Strangle Thorns pushing away, and another teleport being canceled here by Ramune. Just aggressive moves being made all over the map without finding a whole lot for it.
It's interesting. Savage is spending a bunch of time at this bottom lane. Now without the Zyra ultimate, it's going to be kind of tricky for them to make
flash
this
kick
work.
onto Yutori here, but misses the grasping roots. He's able to flash out. Dara's going to go back in. Hero's entrance brings Ramune into the fight, and Tussle's already here to play. They're going to slowly find their way onto the bot lane of 7th Heaven, but just going to put damage and take a couple of summoners. It was a good idea by Savage, but it just did not have the follow-up. If they had been able to land those grasping roots, that could have been a very easy opening kill for that fight. But instead,
Yeah,
this is
also
probably
unfortunate for them on the minion pathing there. Ooh, this is looking dangerous.
I don't expect to see Rampage dive here. They don't have any ultimates available to them. They probably just want this first turret. And as we do see them pushing in, and there's so much wave clear coming out from full AD Varus when he brings that Essence Reaver, when he brings the Infinity Edge. He's just going to be able to bully his way through all these minions, through the other team. There's not much mana left on Rakenya, and getting tagged up like that's not something you want to do. But they're going to just back off, content with the lead that they already have, not going to be making those low percentage plays that we were talking about earlier.
Right. And you saw, 7th Heaven, great idea, slightly poor execution, right? Savage was so close to landing the resonating strike as well, but unfortunate minion placement meant that he wasn't even able to connect the second half of the Q. And so with that, in addition to missing the grasping roots on Thinton, just not able to connect to a kill in time.
Yeah, they're not many item spikes coming out from 7th Heaven yet, as we do start to see them come out for Rampage. The new Abyssal Mask being built up by Ramune, the full Black Cleaver just got finished there for Evie as well, and with Yutori already sitting on the Essence Reaver, they're in a fantastic spot to start making more moves around the map, but the only objectives left standing right now are turrets and that Rift Herald, which we haven't seen the same kind of priority coming out from Japanese teams. Even though it is very much like a win more button, I don't expect to see Rampage making a whole lot of moves, especially while this bot lane turret is still standing.
Yeah. Now again, though, we have to be careful because although Rampage has the lead now, and it's a pretty solid 2K lead, as well as an Infernal Drake and priority on that bottom turret, they are sort of time warp or worried about time here. We
Mm,
talked about it again, but their team composition doesn't bring a lot of reliable damage to a team fight.
mm-hmm.
Past the 30-minute mark, past the 25-30-minute mark, they're going to be really struggling if Yutori Miyasi isn't able to consistently output DPS. And Seventh Heaven, has ways to pressure Yutori this game. They have
Yeah,
the Renekton that can dive in, and the Lee Sin, and the Oriana ball.
and they're gonna start seeing where Kenya and Thinton goes in for another insect right there. Romney's gonna cancel the teleport. They do manage to trade back a turret almost immediately, but with three members of Rampage still on the bottom half, they might just be taking, 2-for-1 deal. Teleport is being blown by Satri, and that's not something you want to have to be using defensively at this point in the game, especially with the next dragon spawning in about a minute, as well as the Rift Herald still available. Lots of damage being put down onto Savage right here. Tussle's in the mid lane too. Scary time for Seventh Heaven. I do like the initial move, but they weren't able to get enough off of it, I think.
Yeah, and once again, Rampage just ever so slightly ahead of the beat there. Able to force the rotation by being there quicker and having the waves in place earlier, and that means that Satori has to burn his teleport in order to save the bottom tier turret. Uh, in addition to that, unable to find the insect kick in order to pick up a kill, which
Mm-hmm.
would have made that trade more
Ooh,
even.
taunt lands on Kenny here in the mid lane. That's not really an excusable amount of damage he could have been he took there. Especially with this dragon coming up, Satri has no teleport. They do have to have the entire team just physically there. And we're already starting to see lots of vision being put down by Rampage in general. We saw earlier control ward on everyone. It's a second Infernal Drake. And that's a scary thing to be playing as Seventh Heaven at this point when you already have a gold deficit that's just gonna get compounded by the second dragon that they just took. Their team is gonna be looking very scary in team fights, and turns out if you have enough of a gold lead, enough of an objective lead, the scaling advantage of Seventh Heaven almost doesn't matter at a certain point.
Right. And it's interesting too. I definitely felt. I think this is a situation where Seventh Heaven feels that they're weaker than they actually are,
Mm-hmm.
um, because
Ooh,
even though they're
Evie finds his
down,
way onto Thinton. There comes the hero's entrance. Savage in a bad spot. Is knocked up by that. Is taunted as well by Ramune. Good flash out by Thinton, who is the real potential victim of this crime, but it's not going to be meaning a whole lot.
we'll just be able to walk out just fine. But you can see Rampage is making all of the proactive plays this game, and
Mm-hmm.
Seventh
Ooh.
Heaven they don't feel comfortable pulling the trigger. Ooh, Unbreakable stopping the ultimate.
Yeah, this is a good spot for Rampage. Ramune is stunned up. But there's not, that much for 7th Heaven to be doing right now, especially against Ramune. He's not the target you want to be starting on. They managed to take him down to half with the help of a couple turret shots. But man, they're not looking in good position. Static Shiv being finished here by Yutori Mayashi, gonna give them just a little bit more wave clear, especially in the side lanes. And as Evie heads down here to the bot lane, we're probably gonna see Yutori and Dara, or potentially Ramune just heading up to that top lane, pushing down that turret. It's already low, and just extending this gold lead. And right now, we talked about the support items a little bit in 7-12. We do see the incredibly strong pairing of Redemption and Locket of the Iron Soul already being finished here by Tussle there in the jungle. And it looks like we're building towards a Knight's Vow as well from Dara. So there's going to be so much protection. If you're going to put all the eggs in one basket, you have to commit to that basket, and that's what they're going to be doing. Evie's getting jumped on here by Savage as well, just going to joust his way out.
Yeah, and past a certain point, it gets really hard to uh, kill that Kled. Not because he's a particularly tanky champion, but because you spend so much
Uh-oh,
time.
there they go. They're going to be able to find their way onto him. He's not going to find the remount. And here comes a teleport coming out of Ramune. Evie's going low, but he's going to get the remount up in time. That is going to be Satri going down, as well as the second bot lane turret. Brock on the other side of the map, not a part of this engagement at all.
Yeah, unfortunate thing for Seventh Heaven. Rampage has been able to consistently force out teleports, and with their
Ooh,
wave
charge
management,
coming out
force
as
champions
well.
off the
Evie's
way.
gonna Evie finds his way there onto Israel, and there's not much he can do. This is gonna be another turret with the inhibitor turret going down for Rampage, and they're gonna be in a great spot to start once again. They're just throwing out ultimates, just kind of see what sticks, and right now plenty of it is sticking.
Yeah, and this is the power of the team composition. They have so many engage tools available to them. Uh, if every single champion on Rampage has an ability that they can use to lock up a member of Seventh Heaven and potentially take a kill.
Mhm.
And at this stage of the game, when you're already ahead, that's so scary to play against. Uh, I feel like Seventh Heaven maybe played a little bit too cautiously in the early game. Maybe they shouldn't have given up that second Infernal Drake without a contest. Now, though, being down almost 6,000 gold, it's only gonna get harder from here for them to uh, make their way back into this game.
And with the map being so lopsided in terms of objectives that have been taken, so far Rampage has taken everything in the literally all in the bot lane and the dragon. It's going to be difficult for them, for 7th Heaven to really have the moves around the map that they would like to because they're stuck here at the 24-minute mark. These super minions are very strong right now, and Satri is going to be sent down there. He's the only one with teleport. We've seen Rampage really be able to draw out a lot of teleports so far this game. It's not going to be something that's going to be easy for him, especially once Evie's going to be sitting there shoving with the super minions pushed so far back. Satri just does not have a presence in this game right now at all.
Definitely a tricky situation to be in as we see Rampage look to further solidify their advantage. Look at all those wards between Tussle and Dara, able to place, what is that, like 5 wards in that top side. They know exactly what they want to be playing to. They want to get down that top tier 1 turret and then pressure the tier 2 with
Mm.
the
Here comes
inhibitor down.
Evie. Evie's just going to... Sometimes just the presence of a player can be enough to take an objective, and Evie just comes in and says, waves hello, and forces the members of 7th Heaven away from that. Savage is going to find Ramune a little bit here. There's plenty of wards going down, but it's just a scary spot. Does choose to go on to him. The quick taunt coming out. Ramune, or excuse me, Galio is a character his taunt is such a strong ability. Evie's just sitting here in the base. He's just on the backside.
What's awesome about that is that it's so threatening too. Evie is threatening the charge ability to just run right down into this middle lane and immediately force flashes and force an engage. And Seventh Heaven has to play really careful. Although it looks a little silly, it's actually
this is
very
exactly it.
intelligent.
The charge is going to come out. Goes on to Thinton. The hero's entrance from Ramune is going to follow it up, but who needs help? All he needs is the damage reduction off of that ability, and with the redemption already on him, he's going to be healed back up. Satri and friends aren't going to be able to do a whole lot. They do manage to dismount him. They do manage to take him down, actually. That's already in favor of Rampage. Tussle goes over the wall. Dara flashes out of the shockwave, and Savage is going to be the next one to fall in just a moment. That's 3 for 1 so far. A double kill going over to Tussle already. And right now, with the Summoner heal coming out, he should be alright to keep going. But they just tear apart the front line of 7th Heaven, and even though Evie does prove himself to be the feeder of the game, it's going to be alright. They are finding the Justice Punch onto Brock as well, but really all they need to do is take this inhibitor, call it quits, and call it a day. Oh, there's 2 feeders on
looks
the
like
team.
It's gonna fall. Still, though, Seventh Heaven, not a successful hold whatsoever. Even lose a turret in their base, in addition to the second inhibitor turret of the game.
And here's a Ocean Dragon coming up for Rampage. You're going to be able to clean that up, making this top turret it feels like an eventuality at this point for Rampage. They're just gonna be able to take whatever they want for the rest of the game.
Yeah, my prediction is rotate top lane to push it out, take the tier 2 turret, and then use that time to get wards down, and then threaten the Baron. Let's see if I'm right, Josh.
Do you even start going for the Baron in this kind of game though? You're up 10k. You've already broken the base of Seventh Heaven. Do you just because if you try and take that, that is potentially a spot just outright lose the game if it goes poorly and they end up taking a 50-50 rather than finding out Savage or Brock before it starts. And we see the charge coming out from Evie. That's going a long way. He's gonna find his way onto Brock. Lots of damage going on there. The rest of the team is very fast, but he doesn't need any help. He's already so
Oh
strong.
my
Gets kicked
lord.
back into the team, but he has the Guardian's Angel available. The Redemption is gonna come down. Savage is in the middle of 4 members. There's not a whole lot he can do. And I do like your predictions, Zane, but it's not going to matter if they're just going to find 2 members, getting another inhibitor right here. They're 5-on-3 right now, and Evie's just looking for another bear trap and a rope. They're in a bad spot. They goof flash forward. Thinton is taking a lot of damage here from Ramne. He's just sitting on 2 defensive items and does not care about your damage. He's sitting in the middle of the enemy team. The rest of Rampage is going to go for this bot lane inhibitor, but they are going to be able to finish up the game here in the next 10 seconds or so as they go in. They find another member, Satori's third death of the game.
10
The
seconds on
Stranglethorns
Brock.
comes out. It should be an easy cleanup here. Evie's just charging forward. They can't even dismount him anymore, and that is going to be game 1 of the series going over to Rampage as Utori adds himself to the list of feeders.
Wow. Rampage with a quick, decisive victory uh, over Seventh Heaven. They just really blew that game apart. I initially I was worried. First competitive game of Kled, but my lord, did he make that champion work well for him. Uh, and I think this is the first time that I've seen the Kled Galio combo. Definitely seemed well practiced
Mm-hmm.
and worked well for Rampage here.
It's been a while since we've seen Evie put on these more carry style champions. We saw him play Kennen and Jarvan last week, but his Kennen was alright, his Jarvan was alright, but his Kled today was fantastic. That was a scary thing. He was able to just exert his will upon Satri and the rest is Seventh Heaven, and simply just building up a lead against what you know to be a weaker laner, a weaker player in the LGL just means that you get to be so far ahead and put yourself in that carry position with a chance to just go completely nuts like we saw.
Yeah, and I would not be surprised whatsoever if Seven Heaven opts to ban the Kled or the Galio, one of the two, uh, going into the next game. You saw how both Romane and Evie were able to pressure their lanes so hard, and it's difficult because they need to find a way to push beyond that, right? It felt like in that game, Seventh Heaven just wasn't quite able to find an advantage in any of their lanes, really, and they need to adapt moving
Mm-hmm.
forward into the series.
Yeah. And let's just take a look at the standings right now for the teams that we have. We have Rampage and Detonation Focus Me both sitting top, pretty at that 2-0 mark, with Unsold Stuff and Seventh Heaven being the 2 teams that are currently 1-1, and Burning Core, both looking for their first win. Excuse me, their first win. Just take a moment right there. Rascal Jester and Rampage have both had the complete polar opposite schedules so far, and that's partly because they've played each other. Rampage starts the split off playing as Burning Core, Rascal Jester now against Seventh Heaven, the 3 bottom teams in the league. And right now, they're 5-0 on games, and if they don't go 6-0 here against Seventh Heaven, it's not going to be a good spot as they do have Unsold Stuff Gaming and Detonation Focus Me the next couple of weeks before we jump off to the Rift Rivals.
Right.
But they're looking pretty. They are proving that they are in fact better than these bottom 3 teams. But Seventh Heaven is looking to be in that 4th place spot, potentially crack into that 3rd place spot though against but with the way that the LJL is currently shaping up, that's going to be a more difficult proposition for them. They just want to be able to avoid the relegations at the end of the split right now, because they did end up playing their relegations this last time, and they did 3-0 their opponent. Um, Whereas on the other hand, we did see that Scars ended up falling away in favor of Burning Core, and that was before they picked up Zeros on the team. So LJL is shaping up to be in a very similar spot this split around, with Burning Core simply replacing Scars uh, in terms of the placements.
Right. And we will have to see if that changes. Will Seventh Heaven be able to come up with a surprise upset? Take the game, take the series, and reverse 2-1. We'll find out after this break.
Yeah, we'll see you soon, guys. Couple minutes. Oops. Alright, welcome back everyone. We're going to get live into Game 2 right now. This is your host, Josh, Joshi Howard, and Zen Nelson coming at you live from Seattle, Washington. We just saw Rampage really just take complete control of that last game, and we do see 7th Heaven reeling a little bit as they do try and find something to bring themselves back in this game, but right now, it's not looking like they're having it in them.
Yeah, I would like to see some adaptation from Seventh Heaven, particularly in the ban phase. I'd be excited to see them take away either the Galio or the Kled. Evie and Romane seemed very comfortable in those champions. I don't think that they want to see that combination of characters again. I'd also like to see Satori perhaps on a different top laner other than Renekton, maybe a better scaling one, one that's more team focused. He didn't seem particularly comfortable on that champion.
That's not Satsuri in the top lane this time. They brought in his sub. I actually don't recognize who it is, but it's that's not Satsuri. I'm curious who is playing for them right now and what it is that they bring to the table. We'll see in just a moment, I'm sure. But we know that Satsuri played a lot of tanks for the team and would somehow find a way to remain relevant, even though he was oftentimes getting 50, 60, 70 CS behind. But they're bringing in a sub. Satsuri clearly not feeling too well. 7th Heaven think that they can do something a little bit better with a different top laner, but they are going to be stacking up against Evie, who's right now, I think the only top laner who is in a really good spot to contest his position as the best one in Japan is going to be Paz on Detonation Focus Me. So pretty much no matter what 7th Heaven is going to be bringing out here, I'm not too sure how successful it will be for them. But again, they are playing against the current top team in the league. They shouldn't feel too bad. If they're able to even bring this game to a close game 2, they should be happy with their performance, I think.
Yeah. 7th Heaven just would like to put themselves on the board, right, at this stage in the game. Would like to show that they are learning and they are improving, that they're not that far behind this early in the season. I mean, granted, you know, we've only played 2 rounds. This is the first game of round 3, week 3 of the LJL, but as it's shaping up, you know, we've seen quite a significant divide between the top and the bottom of the league, and 7th Heaven looking to close that gap this season.
Yeah, we talk about the international gap, right? You know, NA versus Korea, then the rest of Korea to SKT. But Japan's been it's only very recently even become a 3-region team. It was a 2-region team for a long time. And right now,
2-team region.
Yeah. Wait, what? Did you say juicy region?
2-team region.
Oh, yeah. Juicy. But we do see Ryzen stepping in here for Satsuri, and I'm not sure what he brings at all. It'll be interesting to see what he does choose to play. We don't see any top lane focused bans, and I wouldn't be surprised if we saw 7th Heaven either pick up the Lee Sin here, simply because we didn't see Savage pick up the Zac either last round, and we saw how strong last week Rampage actually does play against Zac. They completely... Tussle played Ivern and just completely dumpstered it. Instead, they're going to be grabbing the Varus first pick for Kenya here, and it feels like almost like these two teams are playing chicken. Hey, I'm going to leave up the Zac so that, you know, I can potentially play Ivern. Hey, we're not going to pick it so that if you pick the Zac, you know, we have something to do against it. And we do see Lee Sin getting picked up early here for Rampage. That's going to be for Tussle, pretty sure. But it's something that means that if 7th Heaven do choose to play the Zac, you know, they're going to be in a pretty good spot simply in terms of their engage.
I completely agree. It's interesting to me, too, how neither team really adapted the bans too much. Rampage did opt to ban Galio, since they no longer have first pick access. But Seventh
Hmm.
Heaven thus far haven't changed the game plan too much.
Yeah, they're hovering over a Zyra pick right now. That should be, yeah, that is going to be locked, and it's something that Thinton plays almost every week here at this point. I think he has like four or five of his games already on the champion. I think it's four, but we do see Brock picking up that Orianna once again. Just, if it's not broke, don't fix it. But we are going to need to see a little bit more variety from him because eventually teams are going to start just banning that away from him, and then like we were talking about before with Ramune on, with Ramune on Syndra,
Yeah,
Brock, you can't play competitive with a champion pool of one. You have to be able to play a couple of other champions at least, and we do see once again Ramune playing the Syndra that he played almost every game. It felt like last split to
yeah,
great success, and it'll be interesting to watch these two guys play against each other because they're both on their signature champions thus far, and probably just going to be playing pretty much, just butting heads for the entire game. Both of them
yeah,
just have the ability to press R and outplay your opponent, but that regard definitely goes over to Ramune here. We do
yeah.
see Fiora
And
being banned out from Ryzen.
it's going to be interesting. I'm curious if Seventh Heaven will opt to ban the Rakan, given that Yutori has already locked in the Zaya for himself. We've seen,
There it is.
and there it is. We've seen how incredibly powerful that combination can be, especially in the NA LCS as well as in Korea. Just being able to snap, engage whenever you'd like, uh, using that grand entrance. Not going to be happening, unfortunately.
Hmm.
Rampage looking to pinch the pool of Savage by taking away that Rengar.
Yeah, and that's if he's not gonna play Zach, especially at this point, it's pretty late into the drafting phase for Zach to be considered at this point. And a Blitzcrank actually being banned out against Dara, he must be playing that in solo queue a little bit because we definitely have not seen that at the competitive level yet.
Yeah, and he's gonna be pretty happy to just play Braum again. Why break what's been working for him? That's what he's
Hmm.
gonna do. Has great defensive protection now for Yutori. In addition to the Featherstorm ultimate, also has the glacial strike. No,
Fissure.
glacial fissure. I was close. And actually, we will see the Zac being locked in for Savage this late in.
Ooh.
I still like the pick. We'll have to see what he'll be able to do with it.
Irelia being hovered over for Ryzen. There's a lot of different champions available. Okay, the Jarvan makes a little bit more sense, and I really like this team comp that Seven Heaven has built. It has a little bit of everything, and it engages super hard and team fights incredibly well right now. On the other hand, Rampage still needs to find a top laner. Gragas makes sense. I would not be surprised to see that picked. It is picked. And the big pick right now is definitely going to be Zac being played there by that Savage. We haven't seen him play it at all this season yet, but it's also been banned pretty much every game. I think the only game that we saw it go through was Rampage versus Rascal Jester. Rampage said, haha, you played Zac and never did anything. But they didn't have, at that point, they had the Ivern. Tussle playing the Ivern, which has actually been really cool to watch him adapt to that and play it really well. Now he's on this Lee Sin, which we saw so much of that. So much of the Lee Sin, so much of the Elise last season. He played it a little bit at MSI. And it's just an all-around good pick because it can pick its fights super, super well. And you don't commit to a fight very hard until you go in with your second dash.
Right. And we see now uh, adaption from Seventh Heaven. I like their team composition. I appreciate that it sort of forces them to play more aggressively, right? By the nature
Mm-hmm.
of their champions, Jarvan and Zac, in combination with Oriana, will have to be going forward if they want to have any success in this game. And sometimes that can definitely be helpful. I'm really curious how Ryzen shapes up against, as you mentioned, one of the top laners of the league. Have
Mm-hmm.
not seen him before. Definitely excited to see uh, what he's able to bring to the table.
Yeah.
Rampage also, has this very defensive team composition, however. They have a lot of ways to get Zach and Jarvan off of their carries. And so it's going to be interesting to see if uh, the enemy team can hold a lead
Yeah. It's
against that
scary.
disengage.
It's scary. There's Rampage definitely has a lot more pick focus with their composition. The Gragas explosive cask, the Dragon's Rage from Lee Sin, and just pressing R on Syndra and just deleting a member if they find any kind of lead. Yes, thank you, Japan. We do realize that it is still game two. There it goes. We're welcomed into Summoner's Rift right here, as it's going to be a. We see the more standard thing that we were talking about a little bit with 7th Heaven before. Denton comes down here, plants a lot of eggs. Hopefully, those little dragons will be able to help out. But Zaya, this is probably gonna be the last patch that we see Zaya played for a while. 712 nerfs to her were very, very heavy. Um, you can't auto attack in the middle of Q anymore, so you can't get that instant root plus blade collar, which
Yeah.
made her pretty strong. And the attack speed buff on the W got pushed. I think they like nearly doubled its cooldown or something kind of ridiculous. And
Yeah,
so
I think it was like
yeah,
8 seconds. It was pretty significant.
yeah, that's a long time. It's not really gonna be able to be used in lane. It's gonna be like once per team fight now, rather than you used to be able to use it twice per team fights, especially if they went a long time. But it's a
Yeah.
yeah, very heavy-handed changes, and especially with the rest of the changes to the support itemization, I expect to see a bit more Rakan, but not so much of anybody else. And Rokenya here actually managed to have a 1.0 KDA last game. I don't remember what he ended his score with, but I know with only 3 kills in the game for 7th Heaven, having a 1.0 KDA is actually rather impressive.
Yeah, given the extent of the difficulty that they had that game. Nothing too exciting out of the Keystone Masteries. Um, Savage opting for the more common Courage of the Colossus. You can also take Bond of Stone on the
Mm-hmm.
new Zac for team-wide healing, which is kind of interesting. Storm Raider Surge on Syndra over Thunderlords. Ramune feels that, I'm already going to be murdering everybody. I don't need the extra damage from the Thunder proc. I'd rather just, press my R key and then run really fast out of the fight if I need to.
Indeed. And there's nothing particularly exciting out of pretty much anything of these lanes right now. Pretty much everybody's going for pretty standard stuff. Tussle is opting for his own jungle a little bit more than Savage's jungle. I'd like to see him pressure this Zac a little bit more early in the game simply because, one, that's what Tussle does. He goes very, very aggressive at the beginning of the game. And this is when Zac is definitely at his weakest before he has, a lot of skill points in either um, in his E or his W. And right now, we already see how low he's going simply fighting the jungle. And it hurt a little bit, I believe, in 7-11 and 7-12 because with less damage on the unstable matter, which he uses all the time, it just doesn't, it takes him a little bit longer. And Savage is excuse me, Tussle is not going to be opting to really live in Savage's jungle, is instead going to be focusing on trying to make a lead for himself by jungling faster and getting the lanes faster with those early ganks.
Right. Yeah. One thing that's nice for Rampage is that they feel pretty confident knowing that this new Zac typically doesn't gank until level 4 at the bare minimum. Is not a champion that you can gank with level 3 at. The E range is just too long. But now, though, now this is possible.
Yeah, sitting in the bot lane, Rampage, oh, there he's going in and gets the knock up onto Tori. The Unbreakable's doing a lot of work for them. Does force both the heal and the flash out as well. But the stand behind me coming up from Brahm's going to keep him safe as well. At least save the one summoner there. And we're actually seeing a lead being built up here by Rakenya and Thinton with that early aggression that they are able to bring out from the Zyra and the Varus. The extra range being built up onto Dara means that he is forced to blow through a lot of potions just to maintain pressure in this lane.
Yeah, and already I like Seventh Heaven's chances going into this game. You know, it never felt like in the last game that Savage had control or real influence in any of the lanes that he was
Hmm.
playing against. Now though, on this super long range engaged champion, he can 100% influence lanes, and this is dangerous.
Yeah,
Tussle looking
Tussle finds
for
his way onto Brock. Doesn't throw out the Sonic Wave at all. Just gonna be throwing down a word. Here you go, buddy. You'll be able to see things. But Savage, I like the adaptation there. It feels really wonky, but without a ward specifically where Savage is standing right now, there's yeah, okay, good ward. They smelled that something was up, but without a ward specifically right there, they had no way of knowing where it was. And woo, Romney did
wow.
it.
Yeah. Uh, Once again, this actually happened in the last game too, granted in a different lane. Seventh Heaven twice now has had issues with their opposing laners hitting level 6 and immediately turning that aggression on them.
Hmm.
And it happened once in the bottom, and it happened once again now with Ramane able to pick up first blood over Brock and burn both of Brock's summoners.
Hmm. And that's a lot of minions that Brock is going to miss in the mid lane, too. We already see a 15 CS advantage going in favor of Ramane. Ramane is an interesting player to watch, especially with his summoner spell choices. Normally in this matchup, you expect to see, an Ignite or an Exhaust. But Ramane is opting for the heal on top of the Storm Raider's Surge, so he's just going to have the option to just run around really fast for a moment if he chooses to do that. But he almost always opts for the more defensive summoners, and it's almost excessive, I think, at this point in this matchup.
Oh,
Yeah, Savage
JK.
is looking for something on to add. He's going to end up backing out.
Yeah, Tussle, meanwhile, on the bottom half of the map, does have Dragon Kick available. See if he's able
Coming
to
in,
pull
he's
it off.
does force the immediate flash out from Thinton. And I really like the development of jungle strategies at the professional level. We've seen a lot more just kind of like drive-by ganks more than we used to. We're often used to seeing junglers really go hard with everything, but right now with both junglers here, we're spoiling for a fight here mid lane. There goes Savage as the first one to start off. Does, pull Romney back into the team, but he's going to press R, force Brock right back out. Here comes Rising. There's no flash here on Romney. That is going to be a return kill here for Brock in the mid lane. But that was a big fight. Evie must have teleported to lane earlier off camera, and that just gives Seventh Heaven a huge go button. And that kind of aggression coming out from Seventh Heaven forced a little bit by their composition. But I wonder how much that has to do with Rising just being like, "Yeah, guys, we got this thing. I'm gonna make a play," and he makes a
Yeah,
play.
and I definitely appreciate their Seventh Heaven able to look around the map and say, "Hey, we've got the advantage here. Even if it's a 2v2, we have that teleport available." You can see Savage manages to land the R combo. Uh, Unfortunately, does not coordinate with Brock, but still an easy pickup.
It was funny watching Tussle during that because he was in the goo and then the shockwave pulls him out. It's like, no, buddy, I got you. It's like, don't want to get slimed. It's like Nickelodeon back in the day, right?
Right, right.
Just pulling him out. I'm sure he's appreciative of that. Don't want to get that everywhere. I heard it doesn't get out of your clothes.
Yeah. Savage gonna happily pick up that red buff and then go ahead and head home, happy with the gold in his pocket. Tussle now returning into this bottom side jungle. I wonder if he's gonna do much more than just put out deep wards. It looks like that's gonna be his choice.
Hmm.
One thing that's difficult to do when you're playing against Zach is that he can always gank from the weirdest angles, and so it's very difficult to find a clear path. And here, this is smart from Rampage. Tussle just ran into the jungle, noticed that none of the camps from Zach was up, and so they figure like, hey, Zach is probably gonna go top lane to clear that blue buff. So we're just happy to just take this Cloud Drake while he's gone.
Yeah, and they do pick that up pretty cleanly. We saw last week that Cloud Drake in the matchup between Detonation, Focus Me, and Unsold Stuff, the Cloud Drake basically just wasn't taken, and so I like to see that at least some of the teams in Japan are willing to put that out. Tussle is spotted out by that ward on their own red buff, but Rami is coming down here as well. Tussle doesn't think he's noticed, but he very much is. Goes in, flashes Rakinia doing tons of damage. Not going to be a whole lot,
Oh
but does get
no!
hit up by the Stranglethorns, and RPG is just a little bit too slow. They are going to be able to pick up these kills right here as they both go over. One of them for Xayah, one of them for Syndra. And it looks like they're going to be able to pick this turret up as well. And with a Tour de Force down here in the bot lane, they're looking strong, but a little bit too aggressive by Tussle. Not quite in...
Oh, here they go.
Yeah. Well, there goes Rising. Gets knocked back by the body slam, taking so much damage. Just the root and the blade color come out from Yutori Miyashi. He's probably going for that Essence Reaver once again. So punishing against Rising before he really has any defensive items. Or really any health either.
Yeah. Still, though, pretty decent defense from 7th Heaven. Although they do lose their bottom lane, they did manage to prevent the bottom turret from going down. And here we see again, crucially, Tussle here, he doesn't finish his Q, and so he's able to get bursted down by Rokenian too quickly. A fantastic cask from Evie will knock Rokenia back and guarantee the double kill in return. However, definitely not ideal from Rampage. They could have played that much cleaner.
No, and you have to wonder if that was just like a small mechanical mistake from Tussle, because kicking Rokenia into the wall was also a little bit unusual. I expected him to try and kick him back towards Yutori and Dara. Didn't manage to do so, though. So
Yeah, I think that he was just a hair away from kicking through the wall and also knocking up Fenton was the plan. But he was just a little bit off the mark. Now, though, taking advantage of Brock's back timing, able to put down a lot of turret damage down on this mid tower.
yeah, we do see Ramune in the signature champion battle is doing very well for himself. He's up about looks like a little more than, I don't know, I guess like 500 gold or something at this point, which is pretty solid for the CS late and just the one kill coming out. Tussle is starting to spend a lot more time here in Savage's jungle. Savage is starting to get towards the point of being unkillable, and he hasn't died yet, so it's just, I wouldn't be surprised if we only saw like 1 or 2 deaths on him this game as they really start to push in. Evie and Ryzen trading a lot, but Evie definitely starting to pull far ahead in that matchup as well.
Yeah, and this is part of the difficulty of playing Jarvan, I feel. Very strong champion when given the right circumstances, has incredible engage range. However, struggles a lot when left alone against a lot of the meta top laners.
Yeah, he does damage, but the current top laners are so tanky. I don't see him doing particularly well against Nautilus either, unfortunately, simply because of how much armor that champion does end up building. Right now, Ramen is trying to protect that ward, getting a lot of damage down, but there's a lot of players here already. Chain of Corruption is going to find him out, and Ramen has got nowhere to go. Still has his flash veil, but just was not expecting the roam from the other side of the map.
Yeah, Tussle will go ahead and pick up that Rift Herald. It looks like he's going to use it in the top lane to trade turrets over. Still, though, big win for 7th Heaven as they're able to start to exert their control over the map. Did burn flashes from both of their bottom laners, which might have been excessive. But it's much better to see them playing aggressively and actively taking a role in winning this game, as opposed to perhaps last one.
I wonder, okay, so we saw there, it was really close for the Rift Herald to be in the middle of its charge animation after the turret died. I wonder what would have happened if they had actually killed the turret in the middle of the animation. Would it still have taken so much damage onto itself from that? You know, those
I don't believe so. I believe it would stop the animation. That's what I remember. We will
I don't.
Don't quote me on it.
Yeah, it's just such a weird little thing that it's kind of like, huh, what would have happened? Rampage is in a good spot though. Good explosive cast. Here comes the teleport from
Oh,
Rising. They're in a good spot right now to get an engage going on. Savage goes forward, pushed away, scattered by Ramune, but Rising and Savage aren't in a great spot. We do see the ultimate coming out from Brock, getting good catches here onto the back line
both
of
carries.
Rampage, and that is Rising going down in exchange
Oh,
with the kidnapping coming out from Savage, and that's going to be a 3-for-1 trade right now for Seventh Heaven. It looked sloppy at the beginning, but they really were able to bring it out. And Romney just getting caught out like 3 separate times in the middle of that team fight.
oh, Tussle being greedy.
Yeah, there's
Gonna
not
be
a
able to get
whole
out.
lot Savage can do. He's gonna safeguard himself over the wall. But that was
Still,
a yeah.
fantastic teleport from Ryzen.
Yeah, he does get in, does go down, but the explosive cask being used by Evie, they lose that tool. I didn't see the glacial fissure from Dara. I'm sure we'll see it in the replay. But there's just a lot of small, not quite optimal decisions being made from Rampage during that team fight. It didn't look like they really knew what they wanted to do, but let's take another look at it.
Yeah, so here we see immediately Seventh Heaven burns a ton of resources onto Ramane. And I really like that play because it forces him to play further back. A fantastic two-man ultimate from Brock really puts the pressure on. And then this flash ultimate out of Savage, able to guarantee Yutori's death immediately afterwards. Seventh Heaven just played that really well. I definitely feel that Ramane and Yutori grouped up a little bit too much in that team fight. And the shockwave out of Brock was critical to Seventh Heaven's success.
Yeah, and we didn't see Dara do much of anything during that team fight. It got bursted pretty hard at the very beginning and wasn't able to do anything after throwing down the glacial fissure. We saw him throw out a couple of Qs and get a couple of auto attacks in, but by the time he was kidnapped by Savage, there wasn't a whole lot that he was able to do. And without items under his belt, he's still quite squishy and not quite performing the same role the rest of the team would want him to be doing so far.
Yeah.
But those team
Still
fights,
though,
yeah, team fights aren't something I think Rampage wants to be doing so much in this game. We see how strong Seventh Heaven is right now in this game at team fighting, and Rampage doesn't have a great team fight. It's okay, but it's not Zach, Jarvan, Oriana, Varus, Zyra strong.
no, no, it's not. Still though, uh, pretty even game. Definitely anyone's game. Rampage has the slight lead in turrets. Uh, both teams sitting happy on a single Cloud Drake thus far. Only a 2.5K gold lead separating the two. Um, Rampage definitely has a way to bring it back, but Seventh Heaven could also extend their lead. Uh, like perhaps around this Baron that's spawning in a minute and a half.
Yeah, and they don't do it particularly fast, but it would be difficult for Rampage to contest. Anytime you force an objective against a pick-oriented team, it's going to be a very awkward spot for them to be. And with Tussle already down here in this bottom lane, this is a very interesting spot. There's 4 members here as they start to push down this turret. Simply abusing the back timers of Seventh Heaven a little bit. While we do see Evie up in the top lane, he is sitting on that teleport and an Iceborne Gauntlet rush in this game. So he's going to be doing a lot more damage than we might have expected earlier.
Yeah, and this is even more so than before. This is the phase in the game in which Ryzen is going to really struggle up against that Gragas. As Gragas continues to build armor, sort of the early damage advantage that Jarvan has gets mitigated more and more. And
Mm-hmm.
so it's going to be difficult for him to really be a split push threat. What he'd like to do is to shove out the waves and then immediately, move around the map to be an initiator for Seventh Heaven. And you can see him working towards that in his build with the Tiamat.
Yeah, the Tiamat, the Black Cleaver, the the Hydra Cleaver combo is just something we're starting to see, and we've been seeing for quite a while on almost every meta top laner, simply because of how strong Black Cleaver is for pretty much everyone, and it seems to be dictating the meta almost as hard as really anything else. You got your tank top laners and you got your cleaver top laners. Right now, Savage and Tussle are fighting each other a little bit. A little bit of a skirmish going on here, but neither of them are going to be able to do enough damage to each other without help from their teammate. Ryzen does teleport in from the other side of the map, giving Evie a little bit more free reign to push out a
Uh,
little bit. Pink ward.
Rampage had not spotted Ryzen.
Uh-oh.
They know that the
Oh,
TP
goes
went
in. Does find his way onto Dara and Yutori. Immediate ultimate coming out from Yutori. And they are separating Ryzen from the rest of the team. He does not have the help of anyone. That a little bit too overextending. Here comes Evie from the backside. The explosive cask finds everyone
Ooh.
on the team. And that's going to be a clean ace right here for Rampage. They just need to find their way on to Savage, who's not going to be able to get his way over the wall. And, ooh, I like the idea, but not quite the execution we need. And we're going to see Rampage going for a very clean 20-minute Baron after a beautiful team fight from the entire team.
Yeah, wow. Seventh Heaven, thought that they could get the engage off. However, that clutch Featherstorm out of Yutori prevents Savage from pulling him into the enemy, or pulling him into the team. And then on top of that, Ryzen was sort of left to dry by himself. As we watch this again, see how Savage, he gets the knockup onto Yutari and Dara, but is only able to bring Dara, not who he would like to. And then Ryzen is stuck behind the turret. Rampage is a quick and easy collapse on them. Evie's teleport and subsequent flank is fantastic. Lands a 3-man stun into a 3-man cast explosion. Easy Baron pickup, and the game just swung once again right into Rampage's favor.
And look at this minion wave that they've built up here in the bot lane. With the members they brought down here, they currently have 4. Ramene's got that level 2 ultimate. They should just be able to bully down this first one. And once again, just showing how important this bot lane is to their game plan. With an Infernal Dragon spawning in just a moment, they'll have to decide whether or not they want to pick up that inhibitor or go for that different objective. But they have enough of a wave. They just want to feed this to the turret god as much as possible, slowly drag out those objectives. And just across the map, we just see so much pressure being put out by this early Baron. These minions are so hard to kill for 7th Heaven right now.
Yeah, especially given that, the Baron up minions have especially high magic resistance, which is important because all of 7th Heaven's easiest tools are all magic damage in order to clear waves. Typically expect Zyra to be able to do that and Orianna able to do that, but not the case here.
Yeah, they're going to be relying much heavier on the Dragon Strike from Ryzen and the Piercing Arrow there from Rakenya, which is difficult. It does put them in a position where they kind of want to engage so that they don't have to deal with the siege. But I like that. Using Unbreakable to protect the cannon minion, just making sure you can get much more damage onto the turret. And it does look like this inhibitor turret's going to fall. 7th Heaven needs to fight soon, but they aren't confident in their ability to do so. And Thinton's going to pay the price for that. He's going to go down with the explosive cask. There's the pick we were talking about earlier. And 7th Heaven is just going to end up losing this inhibitor. And Rampage is going to rotate and just pick up. Oh, looks like they're going to go for some picks instead, or push out the mid wave. There's a lot of options they have right now. They are able to make all of the decisions.
Yeah. Looks like they're going to push out the mid wave and then back off to the dragon. And they're going to go ahead and take the back. 7th Heaven, without clear vision of their jungle, even though they only see 3 people on the dragon, they can't run over there and contest it. They're too far pushed back into their base. So Rampage is going to be able to pick up some really important items here. Interestingly, the rapid fire cannon coming out for Yutori Miyasa. We don't see that very often nowadays, especially on Xayah. Typically more of a Phantom Dancer, Runan's Hurricane girl.
Yeah, Japan doesn't like Runan's Hurricane for whatever reason. Even last split, last patch, we started seeing them move off of it, even while the item was still very, very good on almost everybody. Tussle is fighting Savage right here. Not going to do a whole lot. Is kidnapped a little bit on the other side of the wall, but he's got the safeguard available. But no, not going to be let that the shockwave is going to pull him back over, but Thinton, on the other hand, already goes down. Ooh, good flash coming out by Ryzen, but that I do appreciate the teleport attempt, but unfortunately, it's just not paying off. He's got a much more playmaking style than we saw come out of Satri, and I think overall, it seems like an upgrade, but they don't have the synergy that they need to have with him in order to really push through these. And that's going to
Oh
be a
no.
dead Rakenya in just a moment, taking so much damage. No, he's going to be living. No, just kidding. Evie flashes forward, gets it. Savage on the other side, taking a lot of damage from all the members of Rampage. A body slam is not going to quite connect, but Ryzen's going to try and create a death chamber for people, but there's nothing left. There's no shockwave. There's no stranglethorns. That
Oh,
is just going to be another
stun
member.
lance.
Oh, they do manage to find another kill there onto Ramune. Currently 4, 4, and 10 on that Syndra, but they are going to be happy to trade his death for this inhibitor. Once again, going to back out and just go back, heal up, pick up a couple more items. It's going to be it's been scary. 7th Heaven has just been in a scary spot this entire game. They had the moment of brightness with a fantastic flank by Ryzen, picking up a couple of kills, but unfortunately they weren't able to pick up anything beyond the gold. They didn't take a
Right.
turret, they didn't take a dragon, and now their base is starting to crumble.
A staggering 12,000 gold lead for Rampage now. Definitely, throughout this game, Rampage seemed to have the better macro play over Seventh Heaven. It always felt like they were just a hair ahead. Initially, even though Seventh Heaven was matching them in the laning phase, Rampage able to just pick up a couple turrets at a time just by moving Tussle and Ramune together, even just auto-attacking a little bit whenever Brock disappeared, during the back phase was just enough. And then coupled with a couple unfortunate fights, Rampage able to take over this game. I have to say, though, I really appreciate Ryzen's contribution to Seventh Heaven's success. Although it's been limited, he definitely feels like he's been pulling his weight.
Yeah, he's been really interesting to watch because he does, he might not necessarily be at the level of Evie right now. Interesting unbreakable there from Dara. Probably just like trying to prevent the ball from being moved at all. But not quite at the level of Evie as we do see right now. He's getting pushed around, but he is very willing to make plays and try and find ways to find a lead, to find a way back into the game. Whereas that's not something we've really been seeing from a lot of Seventh Heaven. They haven't really had a playmaker on the team outside of Savage, and right now he's on a playmaker, but it's clear it doesn't look practiced in many times. He's had a couple of good team fights, but his gank patterns, his clear patterns have been a little bit odd. Fighting a little bit with Tussle here on the other side, he does use the hop on his way out, but on the other side of the map, Ryzen's already gone down. Tussle's going to be trying to trade back, not going to land the piercing arrow. And with 4 members of Rampage already in the base, it's not a good spot for 7th Heaven. They're going to be running onto Rakenya, who does not have his flash anymore, does not have his ultimate. Just a matter of time, cornering him against the wall.
Man, Savage just totally left Rakenya out to dry there. Nope, sorry, I gotta go help try and kill Ramune. Peace out, dude.
Good luck.
And Rampage feeling pretty good. Will be able to finish off the Nexus. Two pretty decisive games. Game 2, 7th Heaven definitely had a moment to shine, but able to bring it back. And Rampage showing whether at the top of the standings.
Yeah, they're sitting happy. They're pretty happy with their performance today. Not a whole lot to complain about. The real test for them is going to start coming next week and the week after when they have to play against the other team sitting at the top of the standings. Detonation, Focus Me, Unsold Stuff Gaming. Definitely going to pose more of a threat to these guys. But even Ryzen still seems, he's got a little bit of a smile on his face. Even still, I think this is the first time he's played on stage. I don't recognize him from any other team before. I'll have to look into that more later on. But who is your player of the match today?
It's interesting because I felt like Rampage played really well as a team. Everyone had their moments to shine. I think in terms of consistency, I want to give player of the match to Evie. just because he was able to generate such a lead completely by himself in game one. And then in game two, he had that fantastic flash body slam into the ultimate flank
Hmm.
that essentially gave Rampage the game. It swung a match where they were down 2K to being up 5K with Baron buff. So I definitely want to give him good credit, but really everyone played well. Ramune was fantastic. Tussle had a couple good moments. Utori was stellar as always.
Yeah, I do agree. There wasn't, apart from Evie's Kled and the one flank from Greg's, right? There wasn't anything fantastic or outstanding being done here, by Rampage. They're just playing their game, and it's a better game than Seventh Heavens. And they're just able to take control of pretty much whatever they wanted whenever they got a lead. It's just overall just a quiet, slow chokehold. Even though they would just like run down mid lane with Kled's charge. They're just able to just jump on anyone, and there's not a whole lot that Seventh Heaven could do to out rotate Rampage.
Right. And I'm excited going forward to see what these teams do. We've seen Rampage continue to evolve. The Kled was a surprise for me. I didn't expect Evie to play that type of champion, and he played it beautifully, I have to say. Definitely hard to play around that pick, and I hope I see more of it going forward. But there were a couple of bright spots as well for Seventh Heaven. I was surprised by Ryzen. It felt like he had the right ideas, even though his team and him sort of had some communication issues. It felt like he played pretty well given the hand that he was dealt with. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and there were moments in there where you saw Seventh Heaven have the right idea. They were just a hair too far behind.
Mm-hmm. Oh, this is when Savage just totally pieces out and just leaves for Kenya to die. Oh no,
Yeah,
this is okay. It's about to happen, right? They potentially have a way to kill Tussle. They don't quite make it, but by the time he makes it out, Savage is like, "I'm gonna go for a play."
yeah, by himself, without members of his team. I think that he may have been disoriented a bit because he was fighting on the bottom half for so long. He just sort of assumed that Seventh Heaven's Oriana and Zyra was still there, but no, they're back in base. They're healing up. Uh, just sort of goes in. Doesn't really work out so well for him, but
it,
oh well.
it's cool. I like Savage as a player. This series he did not have the same amount of impact as Tussle did, but that's not a bad thing necessarily. Japan has a lot of star junglers for their teams, and Tussle's probably the best of them. Just really, he's made some odd, like, early game aggressions where he's gotten caught out a couple of times, but he always comes back and has always been relevant. Last week he had some fantastic smites. This week he just kind of did his thing. I don't really know. There's not a whole lot that Rampage that any individual player did. They're just communication, their wards, their map movements, just picking up small advantages here and there, was able to put them over the top. I'm not sure they're on a 96F is really promoting Dara as the MVP for the week, but I don't really know. He didn't play badly by any means. He just didn't do a whole lot, it felt like.
He did have a pretty solid kill participation score,
He
and he
did.
didn't die, I think, at all. Maybe once throughout the entire series.
Mhm.
Definitely, a really solid, I guess, foundation for the rest of Rampage to play off of. He had a couple of really good picks. I remember like one particular moment where he threw out his Q and then immediately ulted
Mhm.
and sort of caught the support off guard. Was able to pick up a quick kill that way.
Yeah.
Um, but I
He's
agree, not who I would have gone with. I think.
yeah. Dara's a great support in Japan, but I don't know. Just the bot lane coming out from Japan this entire set was just very quiet overall. They just, again, we're just gonna keep coming back to this, but they just did their job, and so did everybody else. And
Right.
that's oftentimes all you really need to do, at this little play against a weaker opponent is you just need to show up and not lose so often, and that's exactly what they did.
Right.
Well, it is starting to pull up to 6 in the morning. We are done with our matches for today. We do have two more going on tomorrow. Tomorrow morning, it's Unsold Stuff Game is going to be taking on Burning Core, Detonation Focus Me versus Rascal Jester. It is going to be one of the probably one of the more one-sided weeks. I'm expecting a 2-0 in all of these games, unless Rascal Jester can pull something off really impressive against DFM. But Burning Core has not been doing particularly well. If they can rein in Hollis a little bit and just be like, hey, stop feeding, they'll be in a great spot for the rest of it. But Rascal Jester is showing some signs of life. They have a much stronger lineup this split than they have in the past. And if they can really bring it around, they should be in a good spot to at least avoid relegations this split. But for now, you know, they're gonna do all
Need
right.
more
Oh,
work.
Challenger Series finished up or did the qualifiers last night. For anybody who's paying attention to Maple Street, his team did make it in, going 3-0 on the qualifiers alongside. So it was V3 Esports. What were the other ones? Rampage Quintet, Rampage's sister team, as well as Hanagumi Karen and Harmonix Gaming. Couple of actually like first-person shooter teams in Japan coming out. They have Overwatch and Battlefield teams, which is kind of surprising. Not the kind of organization you would expect to be coming in, but they did well for themselves. Although they'll be playing with Crest Gaming and Scars, who was just relegated last split. So it'll be interesting to watch that shape up and see if there's any potentially new challengers coming out of that challenger scene to really take hold of the Japanese scene.
Yeah, I was a little bit disappointed to hear that the Challenger Series playoffs were not going to be streamed, so we couldn't watch it ourselves. But I'm hopeful, you know. And for me personally, as a fan of North America, I'm always a huge fan of like seeing players that I recognize. Uh, Maple Street didn't have the most success as a professional, but I hope that him and his team are able to see great success later on.
Great
As you see,
success. This fight was so weird.
yeah, uh, watch Ryzen. Like he goes in and then he's like, "Oh, Savage left. Uh, oops."
Yeah, I
And
like
that
I think
ultimate,
I think Savage still had the mindset of like that Rengar style of play. Jumps in, oh, didn't get anything. Okay, I'm peacing out. But that's Zach needs to be taking the hits for the rest of his team, and being the last one to fall just means that you're definitely gonna die as your passive pops. But it is 6 in the morning. This is your host Josh Joshi Howard and Zane Zinda and Nelson. We'll see you later on. Thanks for watching.
peace out, everybody.